Welcome to Pleasure Playbook, the podcast. I'm Jenna Miller.
And I'm Steph Morris. We are two sex and intimacy coaches coming together to talk to you about all things love, sex, and relationships with a she comes first attitude.
Each episode combines empowerment and education from a trauma-informed perspective, offering answers to your burning questions in an entertaining and enlightening way.
Join us each week for a tantalizing mix of sexy insights and empowering knowledge on how to live a spicier and more delicious life.
So let's dive into this week's Pleasure Playbook. Welcome back to Pleasure Playbook. Steph and I today haven't seen each other in a hot minute. We have not connected, and there has been a lot of life lived in the past 2 weeks. Well, I think it's been longer than 2 weeks since we recorded a podcast.
Yeah, probably 2.5 weeks actually.
So today we have a special episode for you where you get to be a fly on the wall for our girly chit chat update, brag session, celebration session, whatever, wherever we're gonna go. We actually don't know what's about to happen, so you're along for the ride with us. Steph, how are you feeling today?
I'm excited. Honestly, I've been feeling a little bit low energy today because I just got back last night from Costa Rica. But now that we're here, I'm feeling juicy and high energy, and I'm genuinely pumped for this catch-up conversation because I feel like I've got a lot to update you on, and I know that you have a lot to update me on. So I'm genuinely fucking excited to see what is going to come out of this, and also I just can't wait for these updates.
Yeah, I'm stuttering. I'm so excited. Okay, so where do you want to start? You want to go back to? I know you said you have something like right at the tip of your tongue. Do you want to start there or want to go back?
I don't know if I want to say that.
Okay.
I'm gonna be careful on how much I share because I don't want to Okay, so let's just say I've been in Costa Rica for the last 2 weeks, and
give the context to why, just in case anyone doesn't know.
I was hosting a retreat, so it's my 5th retreat that I was hosting. And it was a fucking magical experience. It was everything I needed. So for context, the last retreat I hosted was January. It's now November when we're recording this. I hadn't traveled all year. The last year and a half has really been such deep healing for me, going through my separation and divorce and just remembering who I am and reconnecting, and just in such a deep healing portal where essentially I haven't progressed towards my goals in 2 years. I feel like I haven't really achieved anything. And on one hand, that can feel kind of shitty because it feels like in some ways a failure. On the other hand, it's just that like pulling back of the arrow before it gets propelled forwards. So I'm okay with it because I had to go through what I've just been through. And I intuitively knew this retreat was going to be really big for me because whenever I host a retreat, it's such a transformative experience for me as well as for the people I'm hosting. And I really embody this next version of myself every time. And I just knew like something big is going to happen. And I feel like this is going to be the final piece of this chapter that I've really closing out essentially a whole phase of life. And so I knew it was going to be big. I knew it was going to be powerful. And intuitively, I knew things were going to be unfolding for me. And this retreat was called Aligned. So it was all about being in alignment. And truthfully, before going, I had this moment of I truly am living in the most aligned space as a version of me. Like everything is just so aligned for me right now. And the only reason I was able to get there is because my life shattered into a million pieces to sort out those elements of life and the people and the parts of myself that weren't really in alignment for my highest self and the goals I set 2 years ago. So sometimes that's what has to happen when you declare these big goals. You have to be ready for things to crumble, the things that aren't in alignment. And that's really a tricky phase. So I've just had a big intuition about November, about this retreat. And basically before I was going, I was like, I feel like I'm going to meet someone, or I feel like something's going to happen, or After I come back, I'm going to be ready to meet my person or something like that. And even before I was going, I was supposed to only go for 10 days. I had this intuitive pull of I'm supposed to stay longer. I need to go back to Nosara so I was in my retreats in Ibiza. I was supposed to go back. I felt this pull like I have to go back to Nosara. So long story long is that before I went, I got contacted. You're getting the whole scoop here. I got contacted by a retreat center in Nosara, basically like, hey, we'd love to collab with you, maybe host your retreat here. And I was like, I'm actually going to be in Costa Rica. Long story short is that they ended up inviting me to go and stay there. So I was like, this is my sign, I'm supposed to stay. So I ended up getting 2 free nights to stay at this retreat space. And I was like, this is a no-brainer. So I went to Nosara afterwards, and it was just amazing. And things have been lining up, connections, people. I'm sitting next to somebody and we're chatting, and they're like living the life that I'm dreaming of in terms of the retreat business that I desire. Like magical connection with somebody, went for dinner with a group of women who I recently connected with one of them. And it was like, we were talking about retreats. It was just, things just happen. And you're just like, I'm in alignment. Like things are synchronistically unfolding and you can't plan this. This happens from this space of alignment. And anyway, I had felt this big intuition of something is going to happen. And I think things are still percolating, unfolding in terms of the business and the connections that I made whilst I was in Nosara. But there is potentially something. I'm like feeling nervous now. There's potentially something that occurred or that is transpiring that has the potential to be very life-changing in my personal life in terms of a connection that was made whilst on this Costa Rica adventure.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
A man?
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't want to divulge too much.
Hey ladies, what if I told you you could take your pleasure game to a whole new level whilst giving your man a blowjob? We're inviting you to join our exclusive workshop, Sacred Praise, the art of pleasure worship, where you'll unlock the art of giving a really good, juicy blowjob.
In this intimate, women-only workshop, we will explore the physical and energetic practices of cock worship, focusing on connection, sensual mastery, and on heightening your pleasure. We'll dive deep into guided techniques, mindset shifts, and even the sacred art of blowjobs, transforming it from a simple act into a ritual of devotion and intimacy.
This is all about owning your sensual power, embracing your role as a pleasure priestess, and having fun in the process. Join us for this transformative experience and unlock the kind of intimacy that deepens connection and makes both of you feel incredible.
Save your spot for the workshop now by heading to the show notes to get all of the details, or send us a DM with the word praise at our Instagram, pleasure_playbook.
Wow, that's so big. And I know you said before you were going to the retreat, you were saying that you had a bit of like anxiety about it. Not maybe anxiety wasn't the word you used, but you were like, I don't know, you were thinking about insurance and like all
Oh
these
my God,
random
yeah,
pieces.
so true.
Was there anything that came up or
No.
through now that you're on the other side?
I think that I don't know why. I mean, yeah, that's so true. I forgot about that. Like I was super anxious in those weeks leading up about everything. And it was the most smooth a retreat that I've done, the most easeful.
Nice.
Everything just flowed, everything. I mean, the weather was rubbish. It was crazy storm, but it couldn't have been more smooth and beautiful. So there was, yeah, that was just like my irrational brain. And yeah, and part of me is like, was I so nervous? I almost feel like I intuitively knew something was going to happen with him, but my mind wasn't there yet. Because I was like, it doesn't make any sense. I'm like, obviously nothing's going to happen. But yeah. So that's that update.
Yeah. So the time in Costa Rica was good.
Yeah.
Or your highlight. Is that secret the highlight?
Yeah, that was the main.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you feel like is what did you uncover about yourself in the experience that you're excited about for the next chapter?
Just that I am really meant to be doing in-person group experiences for people. It
Mhm.
really connected me back with my self, but my power. And I felt really grounded. And there was a really beautiful moment at the end. So at the final morning, closing out of basically every retreat I do, I have the attendees do an exercise where essentially they're reflecting to one another what they have seen, what they've witnessed in each other, and maybe a message that they can take home with them. And the person listening is just receiving and just soaking all of that in. And but everybody's just like crying. It's just really fucking beautiful. And I love to end it that way. And this time, after everybody went, they turned it back on me and they were like, now it's your turn to receive. We want to share with you. And that's never happened before. I've never had people, because I'm like, it's not about me, like at the end of the day. Also, like if they want to do that, like who am I to say no? I will happily receive
Mhm.
all of these things. So I'm standing on this beautiful yoga shala, gorgeous sunny day after it's been raining for the entire week, and the sun came out on that final morning, which was a beautiful metaphor in itself. I'm looking out into the jungle, there's like butterflies, I see the ocean, and everyone, I'm looking out and people come up behind me and are just saying these things to me. And I was just bawling. I was just like, these people, they get it and they see me, and like the woman that I've been trying to become, the most true version of myself that I've been working towards for the last 5 or so years, but really my whole life, I am her now. And these people are
Mhm.
seeing that, and these people are understanding that, and they're receiving me. And I feel so understood. And it was just really beautiful and powerful because in a retreat space, and especially at this retreat, I felt the most authentic I've ever felt in my life. I felt the most liberated that I have ever felt, like in a whole new world and a whole new level. And just so free and so connected to my mission and my purpose. And that felt really good of this is confirmation that this is my path. And that doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but I have that confirmation. You know, we don't do things for validation, but at the same time, when you're doing this kind of work, it is important to have that confirmation and have that feedback that's saying, yes, this is impactful work that you're doing. And yeah, I was such a mess after that, but I loved it. I loved being in the emotions. Tears were just like bawling down my face, and I couldn't even speak. I couldn't eat breakfast after that because I was like, wow, if there was ever a retreat that I really needed that, it was this retreat after the
Mhm.
journey that I've been on. And to receive that and feel that in my heart and just soak it all in was probably like a top moment in my life, truly. So I just feel so much in flow since then and super grateful. And I just can't wait to do more and to share more and create these spaces for people because they really have the potential to completely change the trajectory of your life and just bring you back into yourself. And that's what I love about the retreat spaces. So cool.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And how was your combo?
Oh my God. I mean, fucking hurt. The five
Yeah,
dots here. But it
I
was
noticed them.
beautiful. Yeah. Combo ceremony. Context for that. Essentially frog poison from the Amazon. That is a really beautiful medicine for healing the body. It can really be helpful for any autoimmune disease or inflammation in the body, anything that your body physically is ready to clear. Yet it's a very energetically healing and deeply spiritual sort of ceremony and experience. And the first time that I did that was June 2023. And I really was feeling the call again to experience it. I only booked it the day before because I wanted to make sure I was a full yes. And I knew that if it was meant to be, she would have space. And she did. And it was an incredible reflection because there was 3 parts to the ceremony. The first, she served me rapé, which is a tobacco-based product, and that gets basically sent up your nose, and it's this whole full body grounding experience. And during that part of the journey, so just dropping me into the body, I felt so present, and it was feeling quite intense. And for a moment, I really felt like I wanted to lay down. And the message coming through was, you're strong enough. You can hold this, find that structure and that strength within. And I was really feeling that. And the insight that I had was, I feel really ready for my divorce to come through. And I feel really complete around that chapter. And it felt
Mm.
really beautiful. And I just had this moment of, when that does happen, I really want to go out for a dinner with Jay and just have a celebration, and for us to officially, that will be the final piece. We've already closed that chapter, but that's going to be that final piece of saying goodbye to that phase of life, which was a really incredible and beautiful phase of life. And it just felt really nice to be like, yeah, whenever that comes through, which I don't control the timing of when the courts are going to finalize the paperwork, I just was like, I'm ready. Like, I'm really ready
Yeah.
for that. And that felt really beautiful. And then she put these eye drops. I think it's called Sangha. It's this, all of these are like traditional Amazonian medicines. And it's eye drops, and it helps you to connect with your third eye and see clearly. And I've never experienced it before. It's kind of like a stinging sensation. And as that was happening, my eyes were like dripping, watering, crying from this sensation. And I felt so much peace, because the teardrops rolling down my cheeks and dripping onto my chest and onto my body, I had this moment of, it feels so good to feel like I'm crying and there's no sadness attached to it. I feel so at peace, because for so long I've been intensely crying. There were months where I was crying, sobbing in pain every single day. And those tears were just associated with so much grief and so much pain. And it was really nice to feel the sensation of crying. Like, I can experience that, and it doesn't have to be the sadness. And it feels like that phase again is just closed. So that was really beautiful. And then actually the application of the combo, they basically burn your skin and then have the frog poison that they apply into these points of the burns. And essentially, you end up purging from the body. So it's a physical purge. And it was powerful. I purged. And then after you're done, you basically lie down and just have a meditation. And I kind of dropped into a sleep. And when I was complete, maybe half an hour later, I woke up and I was like, I feel so good. I'm ready for the day. And since then, I've just felt so clear, almost like all of the external ties that my mind and my body had, these threads pulling me to my phone, to my work, to other people, to social media. It felt like all of those were cut, and it was like all of the energy and those entanglements were just pulled back into myself, and I'm back in my body. And almost like if you could experience like a full energetic clearing through the whole body, like a spring cleaning in the body.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can describe it, is how I've been feeling since then. I feel really complete around that past phase of life. And that feels really beautiful. I'm just truly ready for what life is about to bring me, because I'm in a whole new season, a whole new book, a whole new life, essentially.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of me. That's like the full update here.
Is that all the pieces?
I think so. Yeah, the final piece was just the synchronistic connections and conversations I was having with women in Nosara around retreats. And
Mhm.
everything was just leading me towards, I am meant to create and nurture the retreat space in my business, and just be open to where that's going to lead. And I was having conversations with women showing me what's possible, where the mind had been limiting me. Just one example of this is, on the first day of the opening ceremony of the retreat, I was like, I love retreats, and was sharing my journey with retreats and why I believe they're so impactful and have been in my life. And one of the things I said was, I would host a retreat every month if I could. I love them that much. And one of the attendees that evening said to me, so why don't you host them more? And I was like, well, there's just, it's a big effort, like selling the spots is like a big time commitment. I was like, just basically giving all of these reasons and limitations. And he was like quizzing me on that and was like, well, there's always a way, there's always something. And I was like, no, you're right. I'm open to what that may be. And this one of these conversations I had with a woman in Nosara who I was sitting next to at Harmony Hotel, the cafe. We just randomly started talking, and she was telling me how she's been doing retreats since 2014, and she has 12 retreats in the next year. And I was like, tell me more. I was like, you are literally living my dream. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily what I desire forever, to be hosting actually one a month, but that just inspired me. And we were having conversation. I was getting insights from her around how she does it and how it works. And I was like, fuck, it's possible. If that's what I desire, it's possible. And again, my mind was just limiting me on what I can create, which there's no limit. There is no limit. There's only the limitations that our minds put on us based on what we can conceive in the moment. So those are just examples of like, yeah, just what was there. And I feel so alive and so connected and so inspired to move forward and create and forge my own path based on what feels true to me, and kind of cut out the noise of what my mind has been telling me I can and can't do, and what maybe people in my immediate kind of connections or like friends who have businesses are creating. Like, I get to create my own path, and I've been reconnected to my purpose through this experience. And I'm just like, fuck yeah, like ready to take on the world and do really big things for myself and for the world, to be able to serve and really do what I love, which is a gift to myself and to others.
Yay! I love that clarity that moved through, and also the celebration of where you're at now and what's on the horizon for you,
Yeah.
and the
It
way it
feels really good.
expanded your potential,
Yeah. Majorly.
or your mind's potential.
100%.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like life is already amazing, and I'm about to enter an entirely new level of living, of life, of love, of business. And I'm truly ready for it. 2 years ago, when I set the big goals and big desires, and even more bigger dreams have dropped in the last year, now I'm actually ready to
Mhm.
create that and to receive them. I wasn't ready before. And I'm really fucking excited because it feels so good.
Yeah, that's such good awareness to know too. Like, your system may not have been able to handle that back then, and like
Yeah.
you were in a season of rest or inward or introspection, and
Hmm.
that's so exciting to be on the other side of that now.
Yeah. Feels really good.
And I love
I'm
too
excited.
the connection of no Sarah holding you pre and post the divorce as well. The
Yeah,
separation.
totally. And it's just
The symbolism of that is really powerful.
super powerful. Yeah, and that's why I feel like it was necessary that I went there. I just feel like I'm always divinely supported, and leaning into that and just trusting. And sometimes things don't make sense to do them. It's just amazing. I don't have any words. No more words.
No more words.
So, Jenna, tell me about you.
What do you want to ask about?
Oh gosh, I mean, what's happened in the last 2.5 weeks? Because the other day we were texting, and then I suddenly was like, hang on a second. Hang on a second. I'm not sure how much you're going to be sharing here. Shall I say what I sent you?
Sure.
I was like, hang on, Jenna. If you're doing this thing this weekend, does that mean that you are no longer in a relationship? I had a bit of a moment, and I was like, tell me the details. And your response was,
Yeah, I right now am single. So to backtrack things, obviously most of these listeners would know that I went through a major separation, not a separation, but an uncoupling, a breakup in last year in the winter. And that was intense and necessary. It was almost a 10-year relationship that I left, and it was big. And I spent a couple months on my own until the end of the summer, and then I felt excited about what would it look like to dance with men again? Like, what would it look
mm,
like to flex trusting men again? What would it look like to flirt? What would it look like to be perceived? What would it look like to be adored by other people? Because I had had this one singular experience for all of my 20s.
mm,
So I got out into dating and I quickly met a really special, incredible person. And I am such a lover. So it wasn't long before the two of us were really in a relationship and it felt very safe and cozy. And it was exactly what I needed at that time. I really needed a playful partner, someone who was strong and stable, and someone that made me feel safe. And he was all of those things, and I just adore who he is and who he
Mm.
continues to be. But I came to the realization sort of at the end of this summer into this fall early that I do need to spend some time on my own. I've spent my since I was 15, I've been in relationship.
Wow.
And I have had these little pockets of time on my own. But really being in relationship with other people has been this distraction from my own relationship with self.
Mm.
And I lovingly shared with my partner, my last partner, that I do need to spend some time on myself. I need to get my own ducks in a row. I need to nurture and care for myself. I need to turn inward. And that's what I have chosen to do.
Wow.
And it feels really hard. It doesn't feel all exciting. It feels like this is an undertaking that I have to do sometimes rather than I get to do. But I
Mhm.
also see the beauty in I get to do this and I get to spend this little bit of time now, whatever that looks like. I say little bit, but I don't know how long that will be,
Mhm.
where I'm putting myself first because I really do. I put others before me all the time and I give so much in relationships. Like, relationships are my top value in life. I will pour all of myself into relationships with not just lovers, but family and friends and colleagues and people I care for. So, yeah, this is like this act of what would it look like to pour into me first and not feel guilty about that. So,
Mm. Wow. So eloquently delivered. You have such a way with words that's so inspiring to me, especially when you're talking about something so deep and painful and really a life altering decision that you've courageously made. The way that you delivered that, I'm like in awe. So I'm celebrating you for having words for this experience and celebrating you for choosing you because that is fucking exciting. At the same time, undoubtedly scary. I know how much you valued and cared and loved for this human who
mhm.
is an incredible human being. And that's not easy by any means to walk away from something that is so beautiful and
Yeah.
so, yeah, so valuable to you and to say, this is my time.
Right.
But
Yeah,
wow.
it's scary, but it feels good. And on my other podcast on depth, I had my good friend Jillian Duffy on, and she was talking about her journey with sobriety. She was sober for a period of time and then just reintroduced drinking. And she said a Glennon Doyle quote, I believe what the quote was from, and she said that you should go about your life disappointing as many people as you can to avoid disappointing yourself.
Mm. Wow.
And it landed with me like a slap in the face when she said that, because I think I've been living my life in the opposite, right? Trying to disappoint as few people as I can and really abandoning myself at times. And choosing to uncouple in my last relationship was really hard because I knew that was not what he wanted and that was going to be really hard adjustment for both of us. But, especially for someone who doesn't want to do that, that's shitty and that's disappointing him. But ultimately, I would be self abandoning to not
Mm.
follow the truth that is for me right now in this season. I do need to be alone.
Mm. Wow.
So that's how I got to that.
Wow. Oh, I'm celebrating you. I want to give you a
Thank
big
you.
hug.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
Thank you.
excited though, because what is going to come for you from this season or really new phase of life of fully committing to yourself and being in devotion for yourself? Like, what is going to open up from this space? Like, the possibilities are limitless
Mhm.
and deeper alignment is probable here for you. And that's really genuinely exciting. Scary to go into that void. And I think that's why people tend to avoid big life altering decisions and acts like this, because going into that void and not knowing is the hardest thing to do. We love certainty as humans. We love knowing and familiarity. So
Mhm.
choosing with courage to say, I'm going into the space is pretty fucking hard, which is why a lot of people will stay comfortable, stay with that familiar.
For a long time, I identified with not being brave. Like, I would consider
Mm,
myself really fearful and really timid, and my actions spoke that. Like, that brought that into my life, was this trepidation and fear of life,
mm,
truly. And what I've come into relationship with, especially since last year, I've realized, like, how brave I really am, and that I can make these big decisions that affect multiple people and change the course of my life, and that I can hold that. And I've worked with my nervous system to be able to do that. But yeah, it feels so good to flex that bravery muscle, and then to sit in the power of what it feels like to actually let bravery land within my
mm.
body and being.
Wow. You're so fucking brave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I am. Yeah. And it feels so good to hear that, because yeah, for so many years, I just thought I wasn't,
Wow.
and I wouldn't have ever saw myself making decisions that put me in really made me feel really uncomfortable for the sake of my own good. I would have avoided that. And I think so much of our lives are lived that way, of how can we avoid discomfort, and how can we avoid feeling into a new edge. But
Mhm.
that's not where like the real sensation and the juice and the excitement and the expansion and the joy lives.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yay.
Wow. Woo! A
So
lot,
that's part one.
a lot can change in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
That's honestly one of my favorite things about life, just to share that when I was going through my separation, which was the most challenging period of my life. And that was largely due to a lot of traumatic things unfolding. And whenever I thought things couldn't get worse, the next day it would get worse. Like unthinkable things were unfolding that I could never have imagined. And 7 days would go by and I'd be like, surely this is it. And something else would unfold. And so the thing that got me through, and I would call my parents every single day and just be like, okay, it's just have to get through today and hope that today will get better. And the thing I used to say to me with myself was, look how quickly things can change in 7 days, because things were shattering even more within 7 days. And I thought, well, that shows me what's possible the other way. If things can
Right.
unravel so quickly, things can be built back up just as quickly, because that's just the way that life works. So every week I would go into a new week like, what's possible this week? What can I create this week? Because anything can happen. I just need to focus on the next 7 days and just be open to the magic of life unfolding. Because eventually, when you're going spiraling down and things are getting worse and worse and worse, you will reach the bottom at some point. It doesn't just keep going. There's going to
Yeah.
be a space where you finally have hit that rock bottom, and then you start to unravel or re-journey up the spiral.
Right.
And that's just the way that things work. So I think remembering and reflecting back on times of our life where things just kept getting worse and worse, remember that and then flip it.
Mhm.
We live in a world of duality. And so the deeper that you go into the depths, the more you're opening up to spiraling into ascension and expansion and bliss and ecstasy once you are ready to take that journey into those higher states. So, yeah,
Mhm.
what's going to be happening in the next 2 weeks for both you and I? Who knows? It gets
Yeah.
to be exciting and we get to be surprised and delighted by life.
Mhm. Yeah,
Mm.
we are our own masterminds of our life, right?
Mm.
And we get to cook up like whatever we desire. And I think sometimes you just get living in a life that you're in, and you think there's no choice for even a bit of flexibility. But I don't know, there is always pockets that you can switch things up. You can make bold decisions, you can make micro decisions, you can course correct.
Yeah.
something that I've been doing recently is I realized like I was getting on my phone too early in the morning and scrolling, and it was really affecting my day. Like I was kind of draining my energy really early. And so I had a colleague share with me this micro practice that she learned actually at a retreat. And she outlined it for me with this 7-minute pleasure practice in the morning with like an upward journey of moving energy from the root up to the crown. And it's a 14-minute practice altogether, but I just started doing it in the morning when I woke up instead of grabbing my phone and, looking at notifications or whatever. And that little choice to spend those 14 minutes with my body and being and energy in the morning has changed my days.
Mm,
And
wow.
that's like a micro moment, right? That's something that can feel brave to start, but then it has a massive impact.
Yeah.
And we can't discredit those things.
No, that's ultimately what ends up determining your life. It really comes down to the small actions and the small decisions that lead into those bigger life choices and bigger results in life. So I really love that. I actually, maybe I'll start something similar to that. That sounds really beautiful. I have an idea of something that I could do, but really starting with that pleasure. Um, that's one thing that I have been really bad with in this season of life is going on my phone too early. And I really try not to go on Instagram and social media because when I do, I notice the addiction to dopamine that starts at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. because you're literally wiring your
Right.
brain to find that and seek that next dopamine hit, which just leads to really distracted mind for the whole day. And so that's another thing that I feel a little bit more disconnected from my phone now. And I'm ready to take it to that next level as well. So thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that.
Yeah, I spent hardly any time on my phone this weekend, and it
Wow.
felt so good. I was just in connection with other people, and
Were
I
you?
realized come Sunday yeah, we'll get into it. I realized come Sunday, like, late in the day, I had, like, hardly any pulse on what was happening online, and I was like, "Fuck yeah, like, this is where I wanna
Mm,
live. Like, this is where I wanna be in on my weekends," is I think sometimes I'm looking for connection on Instagram or on social platforms, and I just want that little hit of love, praise, connection, a moment of intimacy, and you don't find those actually on Instagram, right?
no.
But sourcing those in your real life, I was like, "Oh, this is a really good reminder."
Mm, yes. As you share that, it's made me reflect on something, which I had this reflection whilst being away. I have become quite dependent since being single on connections through my phone. I have many friends that I voice note every single day that we're sending these like mini podcasts and life updates. And I think it's been really beautiful. And it was a really necessary part of my healing to have such deep connection. And also, I find myself sometimes twiddling my thumbs and like waiting for, that connection through the screen. Even though it's not Instagram or social media, it's still me seeking something outside of myself. And while I've loved the single era and have loved the deep soul friendships and connections that have come from it, it's also that reminder of, where is there space to go more deeply into myself and into connection with myself and find that from within rather than seeking it through the phone to
Yeah.
friends.
Oh, have this app that me and my besties started using called Marco Polo. Have you ever heard of it?
I used to use Marco Polo. Yeah, I haven't used it in
Okay.
years.
It's so fun. So my sister, me, and our best friend from childhood, like she's basically our other sister,
Oh.
we had a group chat. And sometimes like group chats, they just two people get chatting in it, especially when it's a trio. And then you're like so behind and you feel weird catching up into it. And it's just like a lot of text to read and stuff. And we started using Marco Polo, and it's you can be on live with a person who's like on the video. So it's like a FaceTime call, but then you can also and they're just talking. It's one way, but you can react with emojis. And then you can leave these little micro videos for your friends to pick up to and to catch up on. And it has been so fun. It's been such a playful way to connect that I know we're talking about perhaps moving away from the phone, but it just feels more nourishing than
Mm,
maybe a quick text.
yeah, I love
So
that.
anyway, that app has been really fun for us. Mhm.
Ooh, I love it. Yeah, I mean that connection is important. It's just that reflection of where are we using that to avoid something deeper within ourselves.
And not sit with yourself. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mhm. Or source answers and questions from other people, right?
Yeah.
I think I can often fall into the category of giving my power away to be like, "What decision do I make about this?" and get too many opinions and then just get confused and muddled, and I don't know what my truth is anymore. So yeah, that's such a good point.
100%. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, Jenna, what did you do this weekend?
So this weekend, very last minute, I signed up to go to a play party, and it was a this was my first play party ever, and it was also a vulvas only play party, which was another edge for me. But it was with 2 people hosted it that I really trust and 2 people that I felt really comfortable with. So, the facilitators themselves, showing up to a play party in general, I think is a very uh, intimidating. I won't say daunting. It can be erotic, but a very intimidating thing to show up and just be like, okay, there's all these random people here, and you could have sex with any of them if they consent to it, and that is kind of like a wild thing.
Yeah.
But this day was scaffolded like a retreat where there was connection and there was these touch points and there was these little mini workshops and these points for all of these people to connect before even opening up the space to go into play.
Wow.
And it was so healing, so beautiful,
Mm.
so nourishing, and such a cool experience. So I'm really like just sitting in the afterglow of it all and the reverence for what can be created when people show up intentional and open and
Mm.
brave.
Wow. Okay, so many questions. How are you feeling in the lead up to going there?
Yeah.
And what was your
So
intention?
mhm. I felt really curious, I would say, and open. I don't sign up for things very last minute often. This was like really kind of edgy for me. And I think on Thursday night, I posted an Instagram story and I was like, should I go to a play party on Saturday or should I do a retreat for myself? And because of going through the breakup, I have had more time on the weekends to myself. And I was kind of like, last weekend, I spent my weekend doing things that didn't feel good. I was on my phone a lot. I was on TikTok a lot. I watched TV. I just felt like I was numbing and I left the weekend feeling like just flat.
Mm.
And I said to myself, I'm not going to do that again this weekend. So, how can I spend my time more intentionally? And so, this was a play party that was on my radar and I was watching for it about it, like keeping up with it from the facilitators for a month or so, but I was in partnership when it first was introduced to me and I was kind of like, I probably won't do that because we were in a monogamous relationship. And the part of myself that I've really uncovered in the last year is like I'm not as straight as I once thought I was.
I love that.
And there's like this fruitiness to me and expansion in what I deem my sexuality to be that
Mm.
feels fun to explore. And because I was in partnership with men early, I just was like, oh, I like men, I like penis, like I am straight. That, you know? And bisexuality when we were growing up was kind of like it was presented as you were just confused.
Yeah.
If you were a bi girl, people were like, well, just pick a side or you're doing that because you want attention or
Yeah.
like you just don't know what it is so you are on the fence.
Mm.
And I subscribe to that.
Mhm.
You know, I was like, okay, well, I guess I do like penis, so I guess I'll go with this.
Yeah.
So this coming into the play party and it being a queer play party, I was like, well, I feel like a baby queer. I feel like I don't know anything, but I'm really open to learning and seeing what I don't know yet and seeing how people with vulvas interact and have sex and what that looks like. And I was so surprised and I was elated to be in a room and to be at reverence and adoration for what it looks like for bodies to connect that isn't just hetero classic P and B sex. So that's how I felt going into it. That was your question, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I love this so much. And I'm really celebrating you for going on this journey and really owning where you're at and who you are and your, yeah, openness to that conditioning. I think that's a really powerful part of the sexuality journey that we can go on is questioning,
Mhm,
is this really who I am, or is this conditioning and internalized homophobia and shame that I've taken on that has made me believe this about myself? Is this really true? I think that's a really courageous journey, especially around sexuality, to go on. So I'm really celebrating that for you. And I hear the lightness and the playfulness and the excitement in this new phase of what's to come. So I'm going to jump ahead to a question and then I want to backtrack it.
okay.
But how do you feel about knowing that this is going to be a journey and I'm not looking for you to label anything, but how do you feel about your sexuality now post weekend?
I feel really good about it. I feel like I'm entering an era where I'm not putting myself in boxes anymore.
Mhm.
So I just feel open to letting life like have me
Yeah.
and the sexuality of it all and dropping the labels. I had moments where there was that internalized homophobia come up. I grew up Catholic. Like I grew up in a system that taught heteronormativity everywhere I went. And I think if all of us were to drop the shame, like all of us would have more fruitiness to
Yep.
us. Like to just be sexual and sensual with different bodies is I think a cool exploration.
I do too. And I think that's what I admire about the younger generations is that I'm seeing a lot more flexibility and fluidity in their sexuality. They're not allowing themselves to be put in boxes or labeled.
Mhm.
And for such a young generation of people, it's truly inspiring to see. There's conditioning that they're being like, no,
Right.
we're not buying into that. Whereas as generation being raised by boomers, those rule followers, like, they don't question. It's like there's boxes and there's ways that you operate in life and you follow those paths. So I think we're still breaking out of that mold of we get to question. We don't have to follow what's being told of us. There's not one path in life. And I think that's why there can be this struggle and challenge for so many of us in this generation of, oh, there's a path for me perhaps that doesn't exist yet, that I
Mhm.
haven't seen modeled. And following or finding that path is much more challenging than following the traditional path which is being laid out to you. So it's just an interesting journey. I think sexuality is a really interesting piece to witness. And I fucking love the internet for showing us like having access to a lot more now, because it's not just what the movies and what the shows and what the books are showing us. We get to have this little snippet into life and into other people's life, and to see, okay, like there are so many ways that we can be. And I think that's really powerful for us to expand our awareness
Mhm.
of the mind.
Yeah, so I just feel like I'm still uncovering what is my truth and what is right for me, and I feel like I'm in this place where I just feel really open with my sexuality, and that feels
Mm.
really good, and it feels like another piece of that brave pie, right? Where you're like, "Okay, yeah,
Fuck
I
yeah.
get to be brave in this arena as well and take up space in it." And it did feel like an edge for me to go into a queer space and be like, "Well, am I qualified enough to be in a queer space?" That was
Mm.
an interesting thing to toy with in my brain of, like, going into a room and feeling like, "Do I have to justify that I can
Wow.
join you guys?" So, that was an edge for sure, but, yeah, my experience has been sex with women versus sex with men is a very different experience. The pace is very different, the consent is very different, the formula looks really different, the emotions feels very different, and what I really appreciate about queer sex is that there is less of this, like, formula to it. I feel like with hetero sex, you kind of always have these, like, little milestones that you hit, and it, like, ends at a certain period for a certain reason, and that's been a lot of my experience and a lot of folks I talk to. But with queer sex, it's so interesting that even things that you think maybe aren't inherently sexual become sexual and, like, become a part of
Like
sex itself.
like what? If you're open to
Um,
sharing.
yeah, so at the play party, it was really a lot about play, and it's cool to see adults in this space where they're just coming together to play, and sexuality isn't excluded from that invitation. So there was wrestling, like, people
Wow.
wrestling together. There was massages. I had a woman give me, like, a hand and finger massage, and, like,
Oh.
that was very, like, erotic and sensual and connected, and we sat there and looked in each other's eyes while she was massaging my hands and my wrists, and I was like, "Wow, that's so cool that that's a piece of the turn on, that's a piece of the arousal." What else was there? Yeah, that's what comes to mind off the
Wow.
top, but just
And then were people having sex in the room as well, or were there like separate divisions of the
Yeah, there was,
room?
like, 4 spaces of an option. It wasn't a very big space. There was 2 bedrooms, and everything was open door policy, so there was no privacy in terms of, like, if you were in a room, you could be watched or you could be asked to join, like, there was there wasn't private sex to be had. And what was interesting about our group is there was this group of 4 that ended up like breaking off and
Mhm.
right away going together. And they were like 3 people were servicing one person at one time. So like one person was lying in the
Oh,
middle, 2 people were
wow.
at the other side, and then the third person was in between the person's leg with a magic wand. So, like,
Hang
2 people
on.
on so the body's in the middle, 1 on
Mhm.
either side, like, kind of making out or breasts or, like,
Yeah.
kind of engaging with the body on the
Okay,
sides, and
wow.
then someone was sitting in between the person's legs, like,
Oh, and they
mm
had the wand.
yeah, they were with the wand.
Oh,
And then they took
wow.
turns rotating, so
Wow, that's
each
cool.
person then went in the middle. That was really cool to see and to witness, and then there was a few other, yeah, spaces that were filled up of people connecting, and then there was people who didn't there was a couple people who just didn't have any, like, quote, unquote, "sex"
Mhm.
as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
How cool. I feel like you are honestly so bold in this area. Like, how can you not see yourself as brave when your first interaction post 10-year relationship was a threesome,
Yeah.
sober threesome with a couple? Like, that's
Yeah.
fucking, I remember being like, whoa, okay, she's going for it. And now, what, a couple weeks post breakup, you're like, I'm going to go to a queer play party. Like,
Yeah.
that's the definition of bold and brave. Especially, you can't do many more things that are that bold because sexuality is such an edgy piece of humanity. So, you
Mhm.
are the most brave of them all. I
Yeah.
love it. I'm inspired by you and your actions.
We were even talking about it in the opening circle, and people were saying, like, "Oh, have you ever been to a party before, a play party?" And I said, "No, but I've been to a sexuality retreat where we were worshiping pussy and where we were dancing naked and we were self-pleasuring next to each other."
Yeah, no, bold, brave. I don't think many people can say they've been um come at the same time as 100 other women. Let's
Yeah.
put it like that. It's a very unique experience, that's for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so the
Exciting.
play party was fun.
Would you go again?
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
To queer play parties, to all play parties, or
Yeah.
everything?
Yeah, it's so funny. I think threesomes really do feel like a sweet spot for me because I think I like both a lot.
Yeah. You
I
like the
would love
D.
to be in threesome with a man and a woman.
Yeah.
The types of touch you receive are really different, and I really just do love penetration and penis. So that's like one of the pieces that's really clear to me, and I walked away from that experience with. And I would go again, but I think I would really have to vet and qualify the space that I'm going into. This one was held exceptionally, and I think that wouldn't be the case for every play party. I think I want to start creating spaces for people to come and play in because there's a gap in the consciousness of play parties that exists.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jenna, that's huge.
Yeah.
Wow. Look at this. Look at you.
Yeah,
Making
I think I do a great job of
you
facilitating.
I 100% agree. You would do a phenomenal job of creating that space. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that's really exciting. I can see that for you
Mhm.
massively.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
But yeah, I do think there's something to be said though, and we all noted this when we were talking and connecting in the circle at the party on Saturday. Um, to not have any men in the room, there's a settling of your nervous system that happens just because of the blueprint that we come into this world with. We're a bit of on edge, like a
Mhm.
bit guarded, a bit hyper vigilant
Yeah.
about our safety around men. And there was this exhale that existed within just a room of women that you were potentially going to have sex with that was really special. But I can see how that fear of men can also be erotic. Like how the little bit of unsafety
Mhm.
or a lot of unsafety for some
Yeah.
exists is like where some of the turn on lives.
Mhm.
But what I loved about this party is I didn't have to think about like I wasn't like, "Oh, I'm going to put on a coat of self-tan. I'm going to trim my pubes up to perfection. Like I'm going to make my makeup and like everything look amazing." I didn't even do my hair. Like I showed up in really comfortable clothes and the lingerie I chose was just like casual loungewear and it felt so good to be perceived in that way, which was a lot more relaxed. And I think if I was going into an environment where there was men and I was being perceived through the male gaze, I think it would have been I would have turned up differently.
Wow, what an interesting insight and reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I had a
Wow.
pimple and I was like, whatever, it's a pimple. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
cover it, you know? Like I think as I've always tried to look a certain way for men in my life, and we've been taught that.
Mm,
So that
yeah.
was an interesting thing to notice.
That is
And
really interesting.
everyone just it was like a slumber party. Everyone came in comfy clothes and that was
Wow.
that.
I'm
Mhm.
curious what the was there I'm pretty sure from what I've seen they're big on aftercare and integration.
Mhm.
What was that like?
Yeah, that was really lovely. Like the whole day was felt so cozy. The morning was kind of workshop based and talking about consent and talking about feeling like you're no and feeling a yes and knowing what it looks like to have nonverbal communication with bodies as well. And then we had this break, we had this pause, and we had lunch and they served us lunch and that was really beautiful. And then on the property there was a sauna, a cold plunge, and a hot tub, so we were able to use those and kind of like get into our bodies. And then the play party started by doing this 3-minute game where we connected and we asked for something that we wanted to receive. Kind of like how in the retreat, after we did the breathwork sessions, we would ask our partner like something that we wanted, like hair tickles or being
Mm,
held or whatever we needed to
yeah.
integrate the session. That was kind of like what the 3-minute game was. And then we went into play and open play. And then we were invited back by cookies, hot cookies, and
Wow.
sandwiches and
Yeah.
tea and like charcuterie boards. And then we sat in a circle and grounded and shared our experiences and talked. And then did this beautiful, like hand holding connection circle closing moment. Yeah, it was really lovely.
Wow. So how long was the whole day?
We arrived at 11 and we left at 8 p.m.
Okay. Wow.
11 a.m. to 8 p.m. Yeah.
Okay, wow. This is so cool.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
this
the
is
play portion wasn't that long, maybe from 5 until from 4 until 6:30.
oh, okay, that's not
No,
long. Yeah.
yeah, like 7. So 5 to 7. So 2 hours of play
Oh, wow.
for the whole thing.
That's not long.
But there was like arrows and sensuality and exercises all throughout the other hours.
Mhm. Love that.
Mhm.
Wow. This is getting me excited. I'm just thinking about like future retreats and
Yeah.
like
And what that could
couples.
look like for couples too, right? Like
Yeah.
for heterosexual couples as well of what would it look like to actually be more in the sensuality of things and the care and the pacing, like the slowing down of everything
Yeah.
to move rather than what can often feel like rush sex and penetrative hetero
Mhm.
sex.
Which is so delicious. And also, if that's the only thing on the menu forever, like you're going to get
Totally.
tired of eating the same thing over
Yeah.
and over. So, yeah, that sounds really beautiful. And yeah, you, future Jenna, creation of play parties, and Steph, couples retreats based around eros and sensuality and slowing down. And oh, yes, the world needs it.
Right.
All of
Yeah.
it. Oh, wow, juicy. I love this conversation.
Any other updates you want to share?
um, I just feel like this is like a pivotal moment for both of us.
Yeah.
We're in this new phase. We are
Mhm.
entering the age of Aquarius and things have been shifting and things are shifting in the world that we live in on a collective level and on the individual level as well. And I feel like this conversation and us both sort of going on these journeys and then having these quite deep life transforming insights and experiences is a representation of where we're at now and who we're stepping into and what we're ready to claim in this next phase. And truthfully, let's commit to not holding ourselves back anymore. And hopefully, this can be the invitation to all those listening that those days are over. Like, the world really needs more humans like us reclaiming and remembering and doing big things in the world and claiming our bigness and our desires, because that's ultimately how we create a beautiful world to live in that
Mhm.
is operated from this consciousness and from connection and from love. And we can create that in our own individual worlds, and then the impact that has on the planet overall is like really powerful. So the days of playing small and holding ourselves back are over.
Yeah.
It's done.
We're finishing the year out strong, and I'm so excited to see what next year has for us in store
Yeah.
because it's going to be fucking big.
It's going to be really big. Really big.
And it's so cool that we're feeling into that now. Like we have put ourselves in the forward trajectory of like momentum and sizzling
Yeah.
goodness.
It almost feels like, remember how 2020 was kind of like that pivotal year? Like
Mhm.
chaotic in many ways for me anyway, and I think for more for the world. Yet also
For
it was
me, global pandemic, it was chaotic for me. Yeah, yeah.
I should
I
have
know
said
what you
that
mean.
part first.
Yeah.
The pandemic. Then I was reflecting on my own life and relationship. But
Of course, yeah.
I feel like, especially in the world that we live in the coaching space, like that was a really exciting time online where things were flowing, connection, communities, money, like opportunities were really coming out. And I think that there was this like increase in all of that for a while, and then there's like a bit of a crash, and it almost feels like we're in this age of authenticity and realness and liberation and connection. And now everything operating from that space, it feels like just overflow is about to happen in the world, and especially in the spaces that we're in. And that's really cool from a conscious perspective. That's really
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, I feel that.
Mm.
It's like out of that hibernation phase. And maybe that's too like my Saturn return finally coming to a close soon, but it's been like, oh, it's been a tough go.
Damn.
And it feels like we're moving towards lighter horizons, which is
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. We're ready for that.
Fuck yeah.
Woo!
Okay, let's wrap it up. Shall we? Yeah.
Let's, yeah.
Is there anything else you want to say? You're good.
Not at this time, but I'm sure the plot is getting ready to unfold for both of us in our lives, and new characters may be entering the movie very soon.
Lots of new characters coming into the podcast soon for, I'm sure, all of us.
Yeah.
If you want to come hang out with us live, come to our workshop. We are so excited to have our Sacred Praise workshop in very soon time. It is going to be the following Saturday when this podcast episode comes out.
Woo!
So come play with us. Come be in our energy. Big things are happening in our world. And if you want big things happening in your world too, get on this train.
We'll see you there. We love you.
Love you. Bye.